I've heard say this. It's the start that stops most people. Why? Because they don't understand this scientific formula. I've got to become more than I've been being so I can do more than I've been doing, so I can ultimately have more than I've been having. I've got to become more. I've got to increase my mass. I've got to increase my acceleration. I've got to increase my mass, and I've got to increase my mass faster. And then
All right. Good day, everyone. It is a Monday here, and we are doing some Monday morning motivation. I hope you enjoyed that message. So, that comes from Myron Golden. I follow him on YouTube because he just has some great messages about being successful in life and overcoming things and being successful in business. So, this scientific success formula that he mentions is about taking force, which is what you need in order to move something that you're trying to move. um like if you've ever read the Bible story and you hear about you're able to move mountains, that Yeshua said. So this today I want you to think about what motivates you, what moves you, and how can you move and overcome any deficits and any deficiencies in your life, or anything that is keeping you from passing that NCLEX exam. Know that it's easier to fail. This is something he mentions. It's easier to fail than to succeed, and it's easier to fail than to succeed in NCLEX. I often get students who come to me and they're looking for a tutor, and I talk to them and I ask them questions about how was the exam, what did you do to prepare before, and amazingly, amazingly, some students actually say they didn't prepare. Some people admit that they didn't study, that they thought this was just a test they can go and take, and that nursing school had prepared them enough in order to pass that exam. So doing nothing can set yourself up for failure. But doing something and understanding kind of that scientific formula of what it takes to do something, to move something, to become successful, it takes action. So it's easier to fail than to succeed, because succeeding takes effort. It takes studying. It takes having your tutor, going to classes. It takes opening up that book and reading and doing all the things that sometimes we hate to do in order to get to where we want to be. And it does take different types of people with different amounts of time to move that force or to move that object just a little bit. So if your object is to pass the NCLEX and you need to move towards that success, know that your journey is going to be different from other people. Some people pass it right out of school. Some people may take a little while to do so. It takes different people different amounts of time to move even just a little bit. So if an object remains at rest, it's going to remain at rest until it is moved by an outside force. And that's what this scientific formula is about. So what is this force? Well, think of yourself as being the outside force. Force, that Myron Goldwyn mentioned, and this is also just a formula for science. Force equals mass times acceleration. F equals m times a. Well, what does that mean? Well, the force we said is you. You're the outside force. So, in order for you to become enough force to move something that you need to move, you have to have mass and you have to multiply that by acceleration. Well, what is that? That's a very good question. You have to increase the mass that you are. Because remember, force is you. So you are made up of this mass and you are made up of the time and acceleration that it's going to take for you to take that NCLEX and pass it. So you want to increase the mass of what you are. And you want to increase it to a level that it is greater, that you are greater, you, the mass, is greater than what you're trying to move. If you're trying to move and get that that point to say pass on your NCLEX, you have to become greater than it. You have to overcome it. You have to master it. Certain concepts you have to master because those concepts are tested on the NCLEX. So if you're trying to pass the NCLEX exam, you have to increase your mass. You have to increase your knowledge so that whatever they hit you with, if they hit you with the kitchen sink, you're going to be like, I can handle this. All right. And that's what I try to teach you, to understand and master the concepts, go beyond and above just answering the questions, but actually understand the concepts. Once you understand those vital nursing concepts, you're going to master the NCLEX. You're going to master how to take that exam and pass it. That's what I call mastering the concepts. That means no matter what you give me, even if it's um, no matter what it is, if it's psychosocial integrity, if it's physiological adaptation, if it's health promotion, no matter what it is, if it's bleeding, bleeding is bleeding, no matter what, no matter who's bleeding, bleeding is bleeding. And bleeding is a concept of losing volume, fluid volume deficit, hypovolemia, hemorrhagic. That concept of losing volume can possibly put that person into hypovolemic shock. That concept stays the same no matter who the person is, no matter if they're pediatric, no matter if they're an adult, no matter if they're OB. So your mass has to increase to a point that the NCLEX doesn't affect you, but you take take on that exam and you affect it. You make it say, she passed this test. Everything we hit her with or hit him with, he knew it. So you affect it. You succeed in it. It doesn't overcome you. You don't fail, but you pass the NCLEX exam. You're going to master it. You're going to tell yourself that every day. I'm going to master this. So how do you become a bigger mass? Well, you have to become a bigger, better version of yourself. Whatever version of yourself that went and took that exam, you're going to say, whatever I was then, I was anxious, I was hurting, maybe I was not feeling well, maybe I just didn't know the information, maybe I was too focused on something else and I wasn't focused on those test questions. Whatever version of yourself that took the exam previously, you're going to become a better, bigger version of that person. And that's what he says in this scientific success formula. Myron Golden simplifies it. He simplifies it. He says that become a bigger version of yourself. So if you got through nursing school and you knew just enough to get by, you knew just enough to do well on those exams during nursing school, that might have been enough for that, but it may take you more than that to pass the NCLEX exam, to become that LPN, to become that RN. If you find out that you take it and you're like, I didn't really prepare for it, I didn't do anything, I just thought I could take the exam and pass it right away. And if you go and you take it and you find out that you fail, now you're going to learn from that failure and you're going to become a bigger, better version of who you were when you took that exam. You're going to become bigger than that now. You realize this exam is more than just sitting and taking a test, and you're going to think that you may think that I just remembered some stuff from school that they taught me in nursing school, and maybe you think they really prepared you. Well, this exam can be bigger than that. So you're going to think to yourself, because this is a bigger than that exam, I have to become a bigger than that person. I have to become a bigger mass and overcome it. Become a master of the NCLEX exam so that you can pass. Tell yourself that every day. You have to tell yourself who you are, that you're bigger and better, that you are made in that image of God, and that He created you to be bigger and better, right? Remember, bigger. Whatever we're overcoming, God is bigger. So you're going to create the bigger mass that you need to have the force to overcome and move in and towards the direction of success, so that the next time you take the NCLEX exam, they give you a pass. Now, that term acceleration, you have to multiply in order to, you have to multiply that by your mass. Acceleration times the mass. So the bigger you, the more acquired knowledge, content oriented, test strategy, know how you're going to multiply that by acceleration. So when you do that, you are a force to be reckoned with. So the amount of time it takes you to increase that knowledge, you want to accelerate that time. Not too fast, not too slow. You don't want to take years and years, because remember, the NCLEX exam changes every 3 to 4 years. So Sometimes that information and content, we lose it over time if you're not using it, especially if you're not working in the field of nursing. So you want to try to condense it down to what's most important, and allowing your tutor to guide you and help you is probably one of the best things. Having a mentor, having someone who can direct you on what you need to know in a shorter amount of time, so that you set a goal. Set yourself a time frame. I usually recommend 12 weeks, maybe at a max of 16 weeks. So that way you're studying for 3 to 4 months at the most. And over those weeks, you're going to be consistent. And, you may take a little longer, but just keep in mind that the longer it takes, sometimes that can decrease your ability towards success unless you're staying consistent. And sometimes it's just hard for us to stay consistent studying and learning and taking questions for that longer than 3 to 4 months. So try to condense it down. But not everyone, will succeed within that time frame. And that doesn't mean that you took it last year and now I finally didn't pass until a year or two later, because sometimes it takes that. Remember, we said in the beginning that different people take different amounts of time to move whatever they're trying to move to pass that NCLEX. So you just, you have to study and know what's best for you. Know if you're improving, and if you're not, think of ways to improve, to master that content. So set yourself a goal. The acceleration that you need to push against it must be greater, right? Remember, the longer you take, the test plan changes. You have to learn new knowledge and new ways of testing, just like we did with the NGN. Now we're doing case studies and they're not so bad. So you want to put some acceleration in it. You don't want to go too slow on what you're learning, but you want to keep the pace, keep a steady pace. So acceleration is important, because if you don't have enough force, let's say you're trying to push something uphill and it's a huge boulder and it's big, it's bigger than you are, then you got to have some acceleration to get it up the hill. You got to have some force behind it that's a bigger, greater force than it is to get it up the hill. You got to have some mass to roll it up that hill. So that's why acceleration is also important. Just like when a plane is getting ready to take off, notice it doesn't go slow and takes off into the air. It accelerates and accelerates until it has enough acceleration and force behind it, behind it, pushing it along against it, so that no force against it can take it down, but it's able to actually take off. So that's what you want to do. You want to move towards that direction of success and take off. Ask yourself, what does it take for me to become greater? What will I have to do? What is it going to take for me to pass that NCLEX exam and become the LPN or RN that I am destined to be? Don't be skeptical of yourself. Don't be questionable of yourself. Be confident. Know that you have enough valid information in nursing, content, test taking strategies, that you are able to pass this exam. Know that you're going to use the process of elimination. You're going to eliminate incorrect answers and answer the question correctly. So the main thing I want you to take away from today, from the Motivational Monday, is that the start, it's the start that stops most people. You got to start. I love that quote from Les Brown and Myron Golden. He also requoted that from him. And that's a beautiful message. It's the start that stops most people. So you got to start. If you don't start, how are you going to build your force? How are you going to build your mass? How are you going to accelerate and use that force and mass and that acceleration, which is the combination of those two, and use it to overcome maybe that wall or whatever it is that's blocking you from getting to the next step in your life and passing that NCLEX exam? So that includes getting to that point where you can practice as a nurse and your income increases and your many doors open up for you. If you want it, remember, think about your why did you do this in the first place? Why do you want to do this? Why did you go to nursing school? And if you've gone and you've graduated, then why have you not passed the test? You got to put your all into it. So in order to elevate yourself, You got to get on the right path to elevate yourself, to become successful in passing. You have to increase that mass. You have to do more than you've been doing. You have to become more than you are right now. You have to increase your knowledge in nursing and nursing content and nursing concepts and get it up to par to what the NCLEX expects for you to be in order for you to pass the exam. That force now becomes a force to be reckoned with once you get your force up, once you increase your mass and accelerate it. Anything that the NCLEX will try to throw at you, you're going to be like, I know this. I know the answer to this. I'm going to answer it correctly. I know how to use my process of elimination. I know the test taking strategies and tips that my tutor taught me. You're going to master that content. So increase your mass, increase your acceleration, and become successful and pass the NCLEX exam. I know you can do it.